a cold morning, neighbors began to notice something strange. The apartment had gone completely silent. No music, no television, no footsteps. And yet, a little girl was still inside. For days, nobody checked on her. Nobody knew that behind that locked apartment door, a child had been living beside death. And what investigators would eventually discover inside that home would horrify the entire country. This is the story of the girl who survived alone with her dead family for days.
The apartment complex looked completely normal. Small, quiet, forgettable. The kind of place people walked past every day without paying attention. Residents mostly kept to themselves. Some worked night shifts. Some barely spoke to neighbors. And because of that, nobody immediately realized something was wrong. At first, it was little things. A strange smell. Mail piling up. No movement inside the apartment. But in crowded buildings, people often ignore these signs. Everyone assumes someone else will check. And for several days, nobody did. Behind that apartment door, a little girl wandered alone. Hungry, confused, and waiting for someone who was never going to wake up again. Eventually, the concern became impossible to ignore. One neighbor later said the smell had become overwhelming. Calls were made. Authorities arrived. And when officers entered the apartment, they immediately realized this wasn't a normal welfare check. Inside, they discovered the body of the child's mother. Dead for days. The apartment was in terrible condition. Food was gone. The air was heavy. But then, officers heard movement. A tiny child. Still alive. The girl had survived alone in the apartment beside her mother's body. Investigators would later say the child appeared weak and disoriented. And according to reports, she believed her mother was simply sleeping. That detail alone devastated people across the country. Because while adults understood death, the child did not. To her, this was just a very long, confusing nightmare. As news spread, the public reaction was immediate outrage. People asked the same question over and over again. How does this happen? How does a child remain trapped in an apartment for days, without rescue? Some blamed the neighbors. Others blamed social systems. But the reality was more complicated. Modern apartment life can be strangely isolating. People avoid involvement. They mind their business. And many fear overreacting. That silence can become deadly. Investigators later learned the family had been struggling privately. But very few people knew the extent of those struggles. And that's what made the case so haunting. The signs were there. But nobody connected them in time. As investigators pieced together the timeline, they began to understand how the little girl survived. There was almost no food left. Reports claimed she survived by eating whatever she could find nearby. Tiny scraps. Dry cereal. Anything. And throughout all of it, she remained beside her mother's body. Alone. Imagine the fear. The silence. The confusion. A child too young to understand what death even means. Every hour that passed made the situation more dangerous. Dehydration. Starvation. Trauma. Authorities later admitted that if help had arrived much later, the ending could have been far worse. When the story reached the internet, it exploded. Millions of people were horrified. Parents especially struggled to process the details. News videos spread rapidly across social media. People debated, could this have been prevented? Others focused on the child herself. How would she recover emotionally after surviving something so traumatic? Psychologists explained that children experiencing severe trauma often don't fully understand events immediately. Sometimes, the emotional impact arrives years later. That made the story even more heartbreaking. Because while the public moved on after headlines faded, the child would carry those memories forever. Cases like this reveal something deeply uncomfortable about society. People can disappear in plain sight. Families can suffer privately for years. And in cities filled with millions of people, someone can still be completely alone. Experts later discussed how social isolation has become increasingly common. Neighbors rarely know each other anymore. People avoid knocking on doors. And many vulnerable families slip through the cracks unnoticed. This case became more than just a tragedy. It became a warning. A reminder that silence can hide unimaginable suffering. Authorities tried to reconstruct the final days inside the apartment. What exactly happened? How long had the child been alone? What were her final interactions with her mother? Those answers were difficult to determine. But investigators believed the child spent days moving around the apartment, trying to survive. At some point, she likely realized something was wrong. But being so young, she didn't understand death itself. That detail haunted even experienced officers. Some investigators later admitted the case stayed with them long after it ended. Because unlike many crime scenes, this one wasn't violent. It was quiet, silent, lonely, and somehow, that made it even more disturbing. As disturbing as this story was, it wasn't unique. Across the world, similar tragedies have happened. Children discovered alone beside deceased parents. Families hidden behind closed doors for days. Sometimes weeks. These cases often reveal the same painful truth. Isolation kills quietly. And unfortunately, many of these stories only become public after tragedy has already happened. That realization terrified viewers. Because it meant this could happen anywhere. In any apartment building. On any street. To any family people stopped checking on. After the case faded from headlines, one question remained. If nobody had noticed the smell, how much longer would the child have remained there? Another day? 2 days? A week? That question still haunts people. Because the answer may have been fatal. This case became a painful reminder that sometimes, checking on someone matters more than we realize. A knock on a door. A phone call. A moment of concern. Small actions can save lives. And in this story, help arrived just in time. But barely.